one thing that I'm curious about is what's the difference in your work that you do with Emerald Foundation with in the rural area versus urban areas?
So in the urban areas, the area which you would get for planting will obviously be smaller, whereas the area which would be available in the rural areas would obviously be
Right.
larger. Um, in urban areas, human interference impacts our survival. We need more in the urban areas
Right.
for impacting the human beings. So, like we've planted in quite a few gardens, like 5 parks in Bombay, and we've planted almost 50,000 trees in Bombay itself. Um, but what we've noticed is that human beings love the tree shades and then they go inside and then they damage some of the forests, or like the kids want to play, or like somebody light a cigarettes. So, this is like we need them more in the urban areas to impact human health, but also the danger of survival, like the survival rate comes down a little bit. Yeah.
Just because of the population.
Humans not being sensitive enough, I guess. Right. I'd say that that's the. I mean, we've had people really be really happy with the forests which we've planted here, like the people who walk or the children, which is also great, right? Because it's in the urban areas, you want them to be able to enjoy the forest. Whereas in the rural areas, there would be larger plantations. You typically have a plantation for 50,000, 1 lakh in a village, which it also helps to make a water body, because the forest and the water are very interlinked. And then you can control the land to make sure that you collect the rainwater, that you can make a natural, how could I call it, pond, and that water becomes available to the people of the village. Right. So it serves in two ways. But you have animals which come into the forest, so your security needs to be different over there. So I'd say the challenges are different, and also then finding funders, like finding donors for the rural projects, becomes a little more challenging, because people want to donate where there is more visibility, right? Within a city, whereas for donating in a rural area gets more tricky, because nobody can see your company's board in the back of the. So
That was going to be one of my questions, but you brought it up. So, which is funding. So, how do you go about that? I'm sure some of it probably comes from the government, but how about other?
No. Government funding doesn't come. Government helps us with the land and water. So we get the permission from the government. So we'll approach the government, whether it's the Gram Panchayat or the urban local body, or like if it's a. So we have done some planting at the JNPA port, it's the Jawaharlal Nehru port. So that's the central government. So you get permission for the land and the water, which are two very important resources. That comes from the.
When you say permission, the permission to go there and do the work you do.
Yeah, and the land has to be earmarked for forestation.
Right.
Because if it's not earmarked for forest, and if it's for road, or if it is for anything else, we can't use it. Right. So there is always a plan, right? The government is the person who can tell you that, okay, you can use this land for this particular purpose. So like you need permission in writing.
Absolutely. It has the land has to be given that label. I know, like if you have a bungalow, this is interesting. But if you have a bungalow in Bombay, it's generally an RG, which is which actually means that it's a public garden actually, and anyone can come into your bungalow's garden and just have a picnic there.
Correct. Yes.
Legally.
Yes.
And you can't stop them. Okay. But I think most people don't know that, so they don't do that.
I think an RG is marked as an RG. So if your plot is, you'll have a plot which is your private plot on which you'll be able to build, and then RG is public land. So that would be marked as public land. Now, if you've taken the RG as part of your plot, this is different.
Right. So, what is the forestation land? What's its code?
So we're not going in like. The forest department is completely different. Okay. This is under social forestry. If you're working with a Gram Panchayat, you work with social forestry, you work with the Gram Panchayat. In a public garden, it's the garden department of the BMC, which will tell you. Here with the JNP, it's the JNP authority. They have a planning authority. So you have to go to them and say that, or rather, which is the land which is available. We've also been trying to approach BPT. So far, we've not had much luck, but we're hopeful, because BPT has a lot of land in Bombay. So let's see. So that land has to be marked. So the government helps you with the land and with the water most of the times. Sometimes you have to provide for water tankers and things, especially during summer.
Or maybe build a pump, like a land bore well over.
Which requires another permission. So in the rural areas, that's okay, but not so much in the urban areas.
Right.
It's okay for the rural areas. So that's with the land and this. That's where the government help comes from, and the corporates. So we approach the corporates, or now slowly, as like word of mouth, slowly they are also approaching us. So we've done some projects with Nuvama, with SBI Foundation, with IDBI, and so I'm noticing that they are sort of saying, okay, they've done good work, and we pass it on. And what I've learned from the forest, which I'd also say is great to learn, is that you have some competition and you have some cooperation. So I've done something where I've tied up with other companies, which will then approach, because if I'm focusing on the execution, then they are focusing on doing the fundraising. So I've tied up with a few people, like there is Grow Billion Trees, there is Eksath Foundation, there is, different foundations like this who will do fundraising, and then we do the execution. There's Center for Environment Research Education, which are good, solid organizations to work with. So funding comes from the corporates. Even I've noticed that there are high net worth individuals who are happy to be donating for this cause. So I think people are recognizing the value of this. And I feel like if you provide value, like a product which has good value, and they can see that you know what you're doing, and that the result is tangible, like if you give them a before and an after, then people are happy to put money into this.
Right.
I mean, I obviously need a lot more people to be funding, but so far, thankfully, it's been a good slow.
Well, yeah. Hopefully, we can spread the word a little bit in this podcast.
Fingers crossed.
So, I'm curious about alternates to the benefits of forestation. So, for example, one thing I've learned is that a lot of oxygen comes from the marine life in the marine plantations in the seas.
That's true.
So, and obviously the seas also are getting damaged and whatnot, but still, so there's that. How about other sort of alternatives? Are there? I know I'm involved in the startup world. There's startups that are trying to just have machines that convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, kind of thing, and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you ask me, I feel like everything that we do is needed. Whether we're working in waste management, whether we're working at alternate sources of energy, whether we're looking at saving the ocean floors, whether we're working at forestation, we're all going to be having to work towards this, because all of us are using so many resources, and our population has also grown. So we need to be doing everything, whether it's solar power, whether it's wind, whether it's renewable. All of this is going to be, whether we're moving to permaculture instead of industrial agriculture, because all of this, if you look at how we've barely made a dent in the world, like we really have a long way to go.
Are there any areas of India which are you found the most responsive to this, and other areas that were not so responsive?
I mean, I've worked in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan, so I can speak about these three. All three are equally ready for it. Somewhere it's been the government, somewhere it's been private trusts, so it's been different bodies. But I feel like there is a recognition and for this around the country.
Okay.
So I feel like the Prime Minister did a good thing, because with this Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam initiative last year, it was actually really good, because that got a lot of corporates, a lot of banks to start thinking about this, even private individuals, smaller businesses, to think about this concept. When we say Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, who is the Ma? Is it our mother? Is it Mother Earth?
Right.
It was beautiful, and I genuinely feel that when each of us is going to do our bit, is the only way that we are going to be going in the right direction, is when the balance will be shifted. Right now we're too far off. For the balance to shift, it's going to take all of us doing everything that we can.
So we touched on this earlier. I'd like to pursue this a little more, which is how do we, one important thing is, of course, to stop the cutting of the trees in the first place. And then not only that, the reforestation trees, leave them alone and don't go and cut them, which kind of negates the whole thing. So what can be done regarding that?
So that's literally, so if How you have a cake for every birthday? How
Hmm.
about planting a tree every time there is a birthday? Simple things like that. If you have a birth, plant a tree. You're going to need it more than the cake.
Right.
If you have an anniversary, plant a tree. If you have a wedding, plant a tree because you are going to need it. You need
Right.
the air, you need the oxygen. Every time somebody dies, because it's beautiful actually in India. We have like so banyan tree is what you will plant for your ancestors to rest in peace. For marriage, you will have like the sindoor tree, you will have the mehendi tree, you have different trees like Krishna's favorite is parijat. So you have a tree literally for every occasion. Parijat.
Right.
If you're a Shiva bhakt, maybe you can
Right.
plant more rudraksh and bale. So literally all of us planting all of the time is what I would say.
No, and that's great. You're talking about planting. I'm talking about not damaging the existing trees in the first.
Even the existing trees, when we recognize their value.
Right.
So like when we're at Emerald, when we are planting, we do a Bhumi Pujan, but we also do a brief, like a meditation to connect to the earth. When you find your own connection to the earth and to spirit, you are just going to start becoming more aware that what you are doing to that tree, you're also doing to yourself. And that is the only time when you're not going to be cutting that tree, or you're going to be caring about that tree.
Right.
It's a home.
But I think everyone, even rural people, are aware of the benefits of a tree. I mean, it's there in our culture, it's there in our mythology, but then, like I said earlier, I think just the greed kicks in, or whatever, survival/greed, whatever, and then they just like do it, and that's what happens. And then how do you stop that?
I'm guessing that policy in that direction is what we need. If you ask me, policy
Right.
penalize this, also to encourage. So I mean, I also studied law, so there are
Right.
4 ways of
Right.
going about changing. This is literally changing human behavior.
Right.
It's going to require. If you have richer people doing it, what's known as that Sanskritization, then you have the middle class doing it, and then you have the lower
Right.
income people doing it. That's
Or even the
change of
government
behavior.
just make sure that this land is protected and you cannot touch the
So
trees.
exactly,
which,
right? You have policy, you have behavior change, you have different things, like you have, like I'm saying, like if you have your influencers right now influencing the clothes that you wear, or where you are going to travel, you can also have influencers influencing what you are doing with the forests, how you are living your
which
life.
is why I so very much wanted this podcast to happen.
Okay.
Even though my channel is more sort of entrepreneurial and startup based, but I wanted this
Okay.
just because of the importance, the social importance of this.
I'm glad to be here. So
Right. So, being a startup channel, if you were to look at Emerald Foundation as a startup, can you tell us about the early days as well as its growth journey?
sure. So first of all, like when I was in Rajasthan building a water tank, that's when I think epiphany happened, in the sense we had some farmers, some villagers tell me, दीदी आप पानी का टंकी बना रहे हो पर यहाँ पानी नहीं है, आप हमको पानी दे दीजिए, पानी की टंकी की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So I feel like that was literally a moment where I was like, oh my god, there is something which is really wrong. We need to be looking at our natural resources way more than building infrastructure.
Right.
At this moment of the journey. And I guess that sort of stayed, and I was trying to figure out how to do this, and studied sustainability and figured out about the Miyawaki. It's like in this age of Instagram where everything is quick, like that, this Miyawaki method is quick, and I was like, okay, it's quick, it's efficient, it's working, it's everything which is Japanese, it's
Right.
it's great, like this is what we need. And I was like, I want one of my own. Literally, I was like, I want my own Miyawaki forest. Why, like, why? So I've gone knocking on like several corporators' doors saying, listen, मेरे को इधर करना है, garden में आप permission दो, ward offices, pillar to post,
Oof.
like, okay. They're like, what is Miyawaki? यहाँ पे
Right.
Japanese कुछ नहीं चाहिए. All this was going on. This is 2018.
Okay.
Okay, and then I met with.
I can just imagine all that. Oh man.
So I met with forest creators who had already started this work. It started with Shubhendu Sharma with A Forest
Okay.
in Bangalore,
Okay.
and then Dr. Nair, who's with forest creators where I worked. So I met with them, and then I was like, okay, I really want to do this, and banging on every corporator's doors, and basically raise funds from friends and family, and whoever would agree. And then in 2019, we planted our first Miyawaki forest in Colaba Woods in Cuff Parade. So that was
Really?
pretty iconic. I think that was something. And then the BMC actually, Praveen Pradesi was the head at the time of the BMC, and then he came and saw it, and then they passed some GR, government regulation, recognizing Miyawaki as
Right.
something, and then after that it was encouraged actually across the city. And this I'm talking is 2019. Okay,
Huh.
I mean, some of the ward officers I still meet them, they're like, "Arey, madam, aapko yaad hai?" So this is, it's been an interesting journey since then, where now actually they are telling me कि मैम ये garden है, आपके पास कोई donor है तो आप आके लगाओ. So
Right, they are
this
coming
is,
to you instead
yeah,
of you
so
going
this
to them.
has been
So,
quite a journey.
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
been quite a beautiful journey actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was the first challenge, was getting permission, getting people to buy in to this concept, because it was so new, it was not recognized. They're like, oh my god, what is this Japanese thing that you're talking of? And I was like, oh my god, it's only Indian native species. It's just the methodology which is
Right.
being followed, and that's actually the principle, that you use native species.
You should rebrand it. Yeah. Make it the Anuja system.
No, not at all. No.
Right. So
These
just to make the Indians do it.
I'll have to change the name to something else. So
Yeah.
Bharat one. So this is what is going on. That was the first challenge. Then actually after planting it, I did not recognize that we required maintenance. I thought the BMC would maintain it, and then there was like, we had survival issues. That's when I said, okay, when we're actually doing it, we're gonna have to make sure we have people to maintain it, to water it,
Right.
to
Right.
make sure it's safe.
Right.
This was a learning which happened with time.
Right.
So this was like the beginning.
In America, they have a very good system. They have the park rangers, which are basically government employees which work for the Parks and Recreation Department, as they call it, but then they have the expertise of all this trees and this and that, and forestry and whatnot. Which, of course, as a city guy who don't know the basics even, but so, and then they provide those kind of service. They do surveillance in the forest, and
Oh, wow.
whatnot. What they do, all sorts of things. If a fire is breaking out, they'll be the first responders. So
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. It doesn't spread quickly, and all sorts of. If someone's lost in a forest, they help find him and all. And the forest, I mean, we are a little bit glamorizing it. Of course, we need forests, but they're dangerous also.
Absolutely.
like-
You're talking of like the proper good full forests. We
Right.
are still at a much
Right. Obviously, the forest that's just
our
growing is
forest
obviously.
department is also pretty good. We have forest rangers. You have like a good. Our IFS is also pretty
Right,
good.
right.
Yeah.
But that brings up an interesting point about what about the wildlife? I mean, on the one hand, of course, the poor animals are getting extinct and whatnot, but on the other hand, they are dangerous. Like some of them.
It's because we've just taken away their homes. I mean, I was just in the Sanjay Gandhi National Park learning about leopard behavior just like a couple of weekends ago. It was very interesting, right? Because now you have 45 leopards in a very small space.
Right.
Now they are competing. They don't have food resources. So then they're coming out.
Right.
And that guy said it very interestingly. He's like, you're giving it vada pav. We have human behavior which is creating garbage. Where there is garbage, then you have like rats and cats and dogs. And this is very easy food for the leopard. So the leopard is not coming out to eat Vivek or Anuja. The leopard is coming out for the dog, which is because of the human garbage.
Right.
So I don't think that they're particularly dangerous. They're
No,
not
of
interested in us. We're not so tasty. It's just that we've not left them with much choice.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But still, I mean, so no, but that was basically my question: that how do we sort of integrate it all?
We just have more forest.
Right.
When we have more forest, then
Right.
we're doing all these projects where we're saving the tiger. But are we giving the tiger enough space?
Right,
Or we're just like overcrowding it?
And just what you said, Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Now they have too many leopards. So now what do you do? Send some to a zoo to a foreign country, I suppose, or something. I don't know.
Like we got the cheetahs. So
Right.
now, so yeah. So that was, and then with forest creators, it's been a good learning with them, and they're doing phenomenal work. So we did some projects together, and then I set up Emeralds, because I also studied permaculture, which is not industrial agriculture, and it's not only organic agriculture. It's also so working with the farmers, and that's probably somewhere which we also want to work with, knowing that this is what's going on in the rural landscape. So we also work with the water bodies
Right.
along with the forest. The Emerald's aim is, for now we're working with the forest, but we also take into consideration the contour, the land,
Right.
the earth as an entire ecosystem.
Right, the whole ecosystem. Is there any way to integrate agriculture with forests so that, it's not so much that, okay, if an agriculture is happening, then the entire forest destroyed?
Yeah, no, actually, so there is something which is known as agroforestry itself.
Really?
Agroforestry is where you're foraging in the forest for food and you don't need to destroy the forest. Another very interesting, I love to research. I'm a lawyer, like I said, so research is something which is very, there are these studies which are going on. So if you have a farmland and if you have a forest boundary actually around that farmland, the quality of your output, the quantity of your output goes up naturally. Also, you do not need to do all this nitrogen fixing, iska nitrogen kitna, iska sulfur. You don't need to be adding as much of fertilizer,
Right.
because the forest is sort of taking care of it naturally. Even your water table improves. So actually, it improves your agriculture by having forest boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, this is knowledge which we need to start actually putting into
Spreading.
practice.
Yeah. And I think we spoke earlier that I think Emerald needs to really market itself much more,
Yes.
and the social media presence and all
Yes,
of that.
yes, I don't
Well,
get that.
may do a start with this podcast.
we start with this podcast. Yeah.
So, what do you see the future of Emerald? I mean, do you see it growing like a company
Yes,
almost? Or?
we are hoping. So the thing is, we have a social impact model. So that would be impacting the economy, the people, and the environment. And scale is something which is important. So with the vision, yes, like the hope is that we do grow. We started off with 5,000 trees. We've already crossed 4.5 lakh trees. And we're just wanting to grow more and more because it is the need.
Maybe you'll have branches in parts of the country so that,
Fingers crossed.
How many employees do you have right now?
On ground for maintenance, we have around 30-35 people. We have 3 project managers. We have 2 people in the office. And then every time there is a project that is going on, we have like 30, 40, 50 labor depending on the site.
Wow.
So that's...
And all headed by you, so that's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. This is a challenge I faced with my own startup where getting the right staff and getting them to do quality work was a job, and how about that? How did you face labor issues?
I have a very good... So far, touch wood, I've been blessed with very lovely people. I think one of the reasons is also I give them a lot of freedom. So I'm not a fan of micromanaging. I give broader, these are the tasks to complete. This is the time frame that we need to be completing in it. And sort of you check the quality of the person before, but then after that you don't sort of keep micromanaging, because it's also not how I did not enjoy being micromanaged, because you hire intelligent people, or you hire the quality of the person is important, and then once you hire those people, I think you can do well.
Before we conclude, I'd like to explore a little bit about you mentioned the spirituality and healing. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that start?
That's a very personal journey. Like I said, I was quite activist at some point, which means I went for the candle marches, I did slogans, and I stand down on the road, and I've done some, and I feel like it did take a bit of a toll on me.
Right.
I think I was in a state of depression for a while. I want to say in maybe 2013. Not something I speak about often. My younger sister is actually a counselor. I don't know how it gradually happened, but healing and regression. And then I was in the Netherlands, and Dr. Hans Stendam, he's the founder of the Tasso Institute. I had actually gone to him for a session for myself.
Really?
Yeah. And then he was like, Anuja, I feel like you have to become a healer. And I was like, what is this guy saying? I mean, he looks like Santa Claus if you see him. Now he's moved to India. And I was like, okay, I don't know what he's saying. But I think you know, destiny has a way. And so I got into regression, a trained regression therapist and
Okay.
a family constellation therapist. And that actually plays a very important role because the journey of consciousness is ultimately why we're here on earth. And
Absolutely.
it integrates very well, like healing the earth and healing the human individual.
Right.
It's part of the same sort of same journey.
Wonderful. Well, we are getting close to running out of time.
Okay.
Did you have any final words for our viewers or any advice, any recommendation?
I'd say please follow me on Instagram since I have to improve my social media presence. But I'd say just plant a tree and nurture it on every occasion. It's this thing that what can I do? Like the question can go, what can I do, or like what can I do? And each person, each of us can make a change. So to start the change, and as an entrepreneur, I would say use the principle of the forest, compete and cooperate. So
Right.
that's really, and then nurture.
That's
Compete,
good words.
cooperate, and nurture.
But you know what? That brings me a question. As an individual, how would I go about planting a tree? It's all very well to tell me, Vivek, plant a tree. Okay, fine. Where do I go? What land do I go to? There's thousand
You
forms.
come to Emerald.
Thousand. No, I mean, seriously, I would love to go about planting a tree, but first of all, in Bombay, good
I'd
luck
say-
finding a spot of land to
I
even
would-
plant
I
a
would
tree.
say that it would be better if you did it through an organization. So
Okay.
whether there are different organizations who are doing this.
Could you name a few?
Yeah, there is Say Trees, which is doing a good job in
Save
Bangalore.
Trees? Okay.
Say Trees. There's Say Trees, which is doing it in Bangalore. Grow Billion Trees, they tie up with on-ground people, but then they also do the monitoring. Then we are the Emerald Sustainable Foundation. There's something called Grow Trees. There are different people who are
In
doing
Bombay,
this.
what is it?
There's Emerald who's doing it in
Right,
Bombay.
right.
Grow Trees is based in Bombay, but I don't think they do their plantations in
Right.
Bombay itself.
Right.
There's something called Green Yatra. There are quite
Because
a few
I
organizations.
I have no idea. If you told me to go plant a tree, I had no idea where to begin. Where do I even buy the seed?
Yeah,
Where do
yeah,
where do
yeah. No,
where-
I would
where-
suggest that if
Right.
what happens is like, so if you would do it yourself, you'd probably not have the right land, you'd not have the right
Right.
species, you probably did not know how to
And
water
this poor
it.
sapling will die probably
sapling
because I
will
won't even
die.
know how to do it
Yeah,
properly.
and like the impact that you're trying to make would. Whereas if you would actually do it through I
Right.
would say it's just better to let an organization do it for you. Please cross check. Like I said, being discerning is very important.
Right.
Please cross check whether your tree is being planted, it's being looked
Right.
after. Yeah, so that's something I would.
All right,
suggest.
all right.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then make sure, links to all of those are in the description of the video below.
Okay.
So other than that, thank you so much. That
Thank you
was
so much, Vivek, for having me here.
that was a wonderful podcast. And viewers, please make sure to comment on the video below, and let's have a good discussion about this. Please share this to all your friends because this is such an important issue. We are running out of time, as Anuja said. We only have till 2030. Mumbai only has 5% of the trees that it needs. So thanks. And like I said, the description of Anuja's Instagram as well as Emerald Foundation will be below.